Hey everybody, Chris the Up North Air Gunner. So today we're going to go over part 2 of the 1,000-yard shot. We're also going to sprinkle in what we're going to call thousands of Prairie Dogs, which happened at the Prairie Dog Palooza and a pre-Prairie Dog Palooza that I actually was able to go on with the FX Dynamic 35 cal. So if you saw my last video, I gave you a little bit of a teaser. Yes, I hit a shot at 1,000 yards with the FX Dynamic 35. But today's video, we're going to go over a little bit more about what we did, the equipment used, the processes and techniques that we put into this. Before we get into the equipment, there is a story for me personally in all of this. The story for me actually dates back years ago when I was out doing a lot of this stuff, and I was actually practicing for the Guinness Book of World Records, which I eventually did get, and unfortunately Guinness does not even acknowledge it anymore at all with air guns, unfortunately, but you know, I ended up having to make that attempt with a 177 pellet. But during that journey, I was trying to do this with big bore air guns. I was trying to do this with like 35 cal and 45 cal. And along that journey, I actually met Brian Litz just by happenstance, and it was very briefly out at the Marksmanship Training Center here in Northern Michigan. And in that brief encounter with Brian, there was something that he actually said to me that just really stuck with me. And that was when he looked at the slug that I was using that day, which was ultimately just like a black powder cast slug made for like deer hunting. He looked at that and he said, you know, just the shape is completely wrong. You need to have, it needs to be free from imperfections. Every slug needs to weigh the exact same. And just at that time, I was pretty new to all of this. And just over the last 7 years, I've been learning a lot, and I want to share some of that with you. What is also very cool and interesting at this point now is Applied Ballistics is also making this journey into subsonic shooting and documenting a lot of the science that goes behind this and using 22 long rifle and air guns, because subsonically and the ballistic science behind that is kind of like a brave new world. There's not a lot of information out there. And a lot of times as air gunners, I think a lot of times we're trying to use things that we see in the centerfire world and apply them and adopt them to the air gun side of things subsonically. And it is really completely wrong.
It is too round on the top. It needs to be pointy. Round is not scary.
We're in the golden era of air gunning right now where, you know, companies like Applied Ballistics, they're figuring things out, and companies like FX and Element Optics, like there's a lot of companies right now who are really just pushing this sport forward. And what's just cool is that day that I met Brian and he gave me just a couple different pointers, some things to think about. That story, that journey, that experience really sat with me, and it has been a long process up to the Rocky Mountain Airgun Challenge of 2024, where I intended on doing something crazy long, but I didn't realize what it was we were going to do and how far out we were going to go. So, first off, the equipment. The equipment from tip to rear with the FX Dynamic, we're using the Yokozuna Dyne FL suppressor, but I was using it as a harmonic tuner. So we were adding and removing baffle stacks with that to really get a very perfect tune at 100 yards. So we were holding groups like this at 100 yards. Okay, so here we are at 100 yards. And so guys, this is that FX 35 liner. Look at this. That is 5 shots. Holy crap. And moving back from that, we are using an 800 millimeter barrel. So this is a custom barrel that I put together using an FX impact kit in the 800 millimeter size. And ultimately what I did is I just took a transfer port from a Dynamic, 35 cal Dynamic, and I attached it to that to give me an 800 millimeter barrel. So if you're new to air guns, the reason why I'm using such a long barrel is with air guns, I call it it's kind of like the cork gun effect, or like the potato gun effect. When you were a little kid, you'd put a piece of cork into one of those pop guns, and you squeeze it and it popped. That pressure would build up and it just pops. And so that's kind of a little bit like how air guns work. And obviously there's some valving technology that goes along with that. But ultimately, as you're creating that longer runway with barrels, is you're increasing velocity, and on average, you're getting about 10 feet per second more for every inch of barrel that you're adding onto that. And that's really free power. So at the exact same pressure, exact same regulated pressure, I'm getting 10 feet per second more for every inch. So free power, that's the reason why we're running that long barrel. That is not available for the FX Dynamics or the Pantheras yet. Hopefully, maybe someday they will be. But if you are running an FX Impact, those 800 millimeter kits are available. And what's great about that is it makes them feel a little bit not as long because you've got that bullpup style of the FX Impact. So great for 800 millimeter barrel kits. So from there, we have the Element Optics Theos. And guys, honestly, without this glass, I'm not even entirely sure if we would have been able to do the shot. And the reason being is that with that 36 magnification with that optic and just the pure clarity of it, just to kind of even see where we were hitting, some of those dust impacts that we were getting out there were so minimal, but having that clarity of that scope and being able just to pick up little puffs of the dust impact, we were able to figure out where we were hitting to even make this shot possible. And for our air source, we are using a 700cc Air Marksman bottle paired with the Saber Tactical drop bottle kit. And this allows me to use the bottle below the rail, so we can use this really long bottle for all the onboard air we need. From that, we also have the MDT bolt stock, and what makes this capable is that what's so cool about the FX Dynamic is you have the ability to put different AR buffer tube rears on that. So let's talk a little bit about the rear. So we need a little bit of a higher cheek weld in order to see through the scope. And the reason being is we also had to be able to see through this. So what we're using is the Element Theos, but what also I have is the FX No Limit rings. Normally, we use those to basically kind of adjust the rear a little bit to give us more MOA elevation, to give us longer range shooting capability with just the rings. But another thing you can do with that is just raise up both sides of the rings, or both rings can be raised up. And that gave me a higher shooting profile to be able to look through that and then also look through this. So let's talk about what this is. So this is the TACOM HQ Charlie. And what this is a periscope that allows me to see over my barrel. Versus some of the other long-range stuff you've seen on my channel, this is the cold shot elevated base with over 350 MOA of elevation adjustments. So for this, you actually are moving the scope up and down, and eventually at some point, you're going to be staring right into your barrel, and you can get all the elevation changes you need out of that. So this has been great in the past, but shooting out to 1,000 yards and not trying to see through the blur of the barrel, this actually looked right over the top of it. So this is really what made all this possible. But in order to get this thing to work, we actually had to visit the Utah Airguns custom shop. They made a custom front rail section for the FX Dynamic rail. They got all this set up for me, and it was absolutely perfect. Went out to the desert, and I was out there with Rick Ream and Matthias from FX and Rick Ream from Shooter 1721. And we had no idea we were actually going to do this. We put that on. We actually just aimed at a shrub out there in the distance, and we started seeing some dust impacts around there. With some minor adjustments, we knew we were going to be able to do this. So I sent Rick to the dollar store, and he was able to get some balloons. All right, so we're going to put 2 balloons out here at 1,000 yards, and we got these punching balloons.
Yeah, from the dollar store.
What is the size on these balloons?
You can inflate them between 12 to 16 inches.
All right, we're going to call that, I don't know, 14-inch balloon.
14-inch balloon.
Sounds
average.
Right.
All right,
There you
so
go.
we got 2.
Yep.
All right, so we are going to go 1,000 yards. Let's go. So if you watch Rick's channel, Shooter 1721, of course, he comes back with a yellow balloon for him, a white balloon for me. So we got them all set up, and Matthias and I went out to the 1,000 yards. And Rick is on the Element Optics Titan 3K rangefinder.
Mr. Turek and Mr. Matthias are 1,000 yards away. Oh my, you can see Chris's truck there. And then look up on the hill. They're exactly, we put 2 balloons at 1,000 yards, and we got a 357. And we're gonna see if we can poke out there and pop one of them balloons at 1,000 yards with the FX Dynamic there. Ridiculous.
So he was calling me on the phone, and I directed Matthias. And here he comes. Which, by the way, he's deathly afraid of snakes. We told him there's no such thing as snakes in Utah. which means we kind of lied. I lied! There's lots of snakes out here! Like a lot! Well, we came up this Jeep trail, and I'll do a video on the way back, but it was pretty sketchy. I can't believe you walked up that hill, man.
Yeah, I'm fine.
All right, we made it. So we made it back safely, and then we set up the shot. And what's so cool about this is what we had our data on previous engagements, the dope on, I think it was out to 500 yards, or maybe it was like 700. So what happens when we were taking shots out there, I noticed that based on the data that I had input into, there's 300 and something MOA in this, and then also then with our turrets, we were able to input more elevation. It was off. It was off quite a bit.
All right, Desert Shenanigans, 1,000 yards, FX Dynamic 357. We got 2 balloons, 1 white, 1 yellow. Are you ready? Yep, go ahead. You catch anything in that?
Nope, nothing.
Finally, we're starting to see impacts at the bottom of the scope, so it's significantly off as far as elevation goes. Obviously, what happens over long range like that, your ballistic coefficient is going to change. So even at the muzzle and out to 100 yards, we were getting 0.33 with these Griffin slugs that we were shooting. We had to use the trueing feature in the Element Optics app. What was awesome about that, I just input like where I was seeing my impacts versus what the actual original ballistic solution was. It did all the calculations, made the adjustment for me. We dialed the adjustment in the turrets. And what's so nuts is like the very next shot, we're hitting all around the balloon.
Oh my goodness!
Come on, man.
That ain't right.
1 balloon to the right.
Just above. 2 balloons above.
2 balloons high?
Yeah. Oh!
Come on! Come on! What?
I don't know what to say about that.
I would just do the same.
Yeah, pretty much.
It was just 3 balloons to the right.
Yeah. Oh!
Just right above it.
Was it right above it?
Right above it.
It looks like it was this high above it. Oh!
Just right above it.
All around that balloon, and within a handful of shots, I absolutely nailed it. Okay, was that right above it?
Yes.
Just when you have the balloon, just right above it.
Yeah, I mean, you can just see.
Bottom edge of the balloon this time.
All right. What? Yes!
So awesome how the Element Optics app paired with the Theos and using the elevation turret adjustments in the Theos, and then using the FX radar to get those original velocity readings, the original BC reading. But what's absolutely crazy about this is look at the time of flight on this. So the way the tuning feature on the Element Optics app calculated the new ballistic solution, the flight time was exactly, it was in like a 1/10 of a second. All of that together is really what made this with shot possible. But the question is, was it repeatable, right? I was able to do it. Was it a fluke, or could I just hand my rifle to somebody else and have them step in and do the exact same thing? We did not show you the laser rangefinder when the 2 balloons were up there. So the yellow balloon is still there. So before Rick went. All right, so we're going to get it range it. What do you got, range?
1001 like Rick.
1001. So yeah, the yellow balloon's technically a little bit further than mine. Of course, Rick steps up. Normally, Rick would just completely beat me and get it in like less shots than I did. But I'm actually kind of glad that he did it, because what happened next was Rick, the wind actually kicked up quite a bit more with Rick's shot. And when you look at the calculations on that, the difference between, let's say, like a 10 mile an hour versus like a 15 or 18 mile an hour wind, that change where the wind would shut down and pick back up, it's blowing it significantly off. But once we got all that figured out, what's crazy about this is I'm going to put a black square around Rick's balloon, and that square is equivalent in size to the king of the 2 mile shots. And the reason why I want to make that analogy or make that parallel comparison is that look at the time of flight of our projectile as compared to like king of 2 mile, or as they even go out past that. Hitting a square plate that big, in my mind, is within the level of precision. And Rick's shots, shot after shot after shot, about 90% of his shots would have hit that plate.
Oh! Come on.
Ah! Top left.
It was time to shoot it. We got to hit it here.
Ah! Oh, Rick! Go. Ah! Even closer. Oh! Same.
Adios, amigos. We got
Oh!
Within a handful of shots, Rick hit it too. We absolutely lose our minds.
This is awesome, Justin. Here we go.
Come on.
Here we go. Come on, hit it.
There we go.
With Justin on the phone.
And say hi, Justin.
What's up, everybody? That's incredible.
Guys, what is awesome about this is that all of this equipment we have access to, right? Through FX Airguns, Element Optics, being able to use these rangefinders. And what's so cool about all of these accessories work together to do stuff like this. And so, but the story isn't over yet, because right after that, right after the Rocky Mountain Airgun Challenge was over, Justin got me permission to go on a little bit of a pre-hunt, a scouting mission for the Prairie Dog Palooza. And I use this exact same platform. So we loaded it up with the FX hybrid slugs, which are only 68 grains, not meant for long range. But what's so crazy, we're using all of that available power and what's in this platform. All right, everybody, here we are in southern Utah, and out in those fields are thousands of prairie dogs. So we've got the FX Dynamic, and we're going to be putting a lot of them down. We're going to start off with the Corbin 110 grains. I have a few of those left. We're going to see how they work, and then we're going to switch over to the FX hybrids because I've got a ton of those. So let's head out in the field. Let's get it done. Well, 120 yards. Smoked him. So he did not make it back to his hole. 174 yards. 174 yards. Storm's coming. Well, that was fun. Hey guys, if you want to help these farmers, look at this field. They're saying the farmer just loves it when we come out here and do this. Just smoking them left and right. I mean, I've been shooting them all day, guys. I just lost count. A lot of times you'll hit them and they just kind of fall back into their hole. And I'm definitely not going to reach in there to pull them out. But we got a big storm coming in here. I'm going to pack it up. Well, there it is, everybody. The FX Dynamic 357 with the 800 millimeter custom barrel. And I'm slinging those hybrids. I tuned it down to 1075. It was pushing them about 1130. Completely pushed out. So, man, that gun is absolutely wicked. So that recon mission went great, because about a month later, we went on to the Prairie Dog Palooza, and it was absolutely awesome. So here's a little bit of a preview of that event. But huge shout out to Utah Airguns for hosting that. You will hear about that in another video, because we took all the same technology that we used in this 1,000-yard shot, and we used a lot of that for the extreme long-range hunting that we did with Prairie Dogs. Everything from the Element Optics laser rangefinders, the ballistic app, the scopes, the same rigs. But we brought in the FX Impact M4. So there it is, everybody. The whole story. Thanks for joining me, everybody. Take care.